Commissioner Smith cannot make it tonight.
Do we have our council member planning to attend legislature?
Chair, we didn't hear from Council Member Lediju, so maybe not.
You don't know what I'm thinking. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Housing and Community Development Commission regular meeting. Special meeting. Thank you so much. The time now is 7:08, and I call this meeting to order. We will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, taking now to proceed to the agenda this evening, we will now have roll call.
Commissioners Bundy,
Here.
Jackson,
Present.
Patrick.
Present.
Commissioner Smith is absent, excused.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the agenda. Item number 4 on the agenda is presentations and commendations.
Through the chair, we don't have any presentations and commendations for tonight.
Thank you so much. If we could move to item number 5, report of the City Council liaison. I see that City Council member Tanya Lediju is she's not here this evening. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Moving on to the community forum. The community forum is an opportunity for residents to discuss items not on the agenda that are within the purview of the commission. The commission may not discuss or act on these items, but may require they be placed on a future agenda. If an item is not within the purview of the commission, the person may be referred to the appropriate party. Members of the public wishing to address the commission on action calendar items may do so by submitting a completed speaker's card to the secretary via teleconference. Each speaker participating under the community forum shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Do we have anyone on the line this evening?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Currently, do not have any members of the public signed up for the community forum, either in person or online at this time.
Thank you so much. Could you run a timer on the clock starting now for 2 minutes while we proceed with the agenda?
Thank you. I have a timer on my phone. I actually don't have one that I can display currently in this space. However, at the conclusion of that timer, if anyone has signed up, I'll be sure to let you know.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 7, public comment regarding the consent calendar items. I will pause closing the community forum, but move forward with public comment regarding the consent calendar items. Are there any items on the consent calendar?
Through the chair, there are no consent calendar items.
Thank you. Let's take a quick minute and a half while we wait for the phone call before we move forward with the agenda. moving on, the community forum is now closed. Can we please have roll call for the motion to approve the agenda? Item number 8A. Thank you so much. Can I have someone second that motion?
I second it.
Can we please have roll call?
Commissioners Bundy, Jackson,
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting held on December 5th. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Sorry, the minutes from December 5th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from December 5th. I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioners Bundy,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
Thank you.
Action calendar items. Agenda item number 9.
Excuse me, through the chair. Could we approve the minutes for January 7th, 2025, please?
Thank you so much. On the floor, approval of the minutes for January 7. Can I have a commissioner?
Make the motion to approve.
Can I have someone second the motion?
I second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Commissioners Bundy,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now moving on to item number 9, action calendar items. Members of the public wishing to address the commission on action calendar items may do so by submitting a completed speaker's card to the secretary via teleconference. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Are there any callers on the line?
Through the chair, there are no speakers currently for this item signed up.
Action item number 9A, which is a recommendation to approve please hold a timer. Recommendation to approve the 5-year public housing agency plan for fiscal year 2025 through 2026 through 2029 through 30, and the fiscal year 2025 through 2026 annual for the period covering July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Public Housing Agency PHA plans and authorizing their submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We have a recommendation that I'd like to read before we move forward. The recommendation is to recommend through a resolution by the Housing and Community Development Commission to the Housing Authority of the City of Vallejo's Housing Authority Board of Directors approval of the Vallejo Housing Authority fiscal year 2025 through 2029, 5-year for the period covering July 1st through June 30th, Public Housing Agency plan and authorize its submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD Office of Public and Indian Housing. Commissioners, we are now on item number 9A.
I have a presentation.
Through the chair, our housing director, Alicia Jones, has a presentation for item 9A.
Please proceed, Director.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Alicia Jones, Housing Director, Housing Community Development Department. Today I have a short presentation regarding item 9A on the PHA five-year plan. Next slide. What is the PHA 5-year annual plan? The 5-year annual plan is a comprehensive plan to identify the goals and the missions of the Housing Authority based on the local needs of the community that we serve. The plan actually identifies new activities that the Housing Authority will undertake and also provides a progress report that's required by HUD on an annual basis. The plan informs HUD and the residents of Vallejo of its mission to serve low-income families and individuals. Next slide. The Housing Authority's mission is to provide quality housing in high-resource neighborhoods as a foundation to create access to opportunities and a positive change in the lives of low-income, very low-income, and extremely low-income families, seniors, and people with special needs. The plan introduces effective social service programs and guide residents to educational, job training, and employment opportunities that aim at increasing success outside of the Housing Choice Voucher program. Next slide. The goals of the five-year plan for fiscal year 2025 through 2029 are the agency anticipates and will apply for additional special purpose vouchers to help mitigate homelessness. In order for the agency to apply for special purpose vouchers, we have to increase our current utilization of our current voucher program. So that by increasing our utilization, will increase our chances to apply for special purpose vouchers. And some of the special purpose vouchers that are available are mainstream vouchers and non-elderly disabled vouchers. Those special purpose vouchers are intended to help those that are homeless or at risk of being homeless. In addition to increasing our special purpose vouchers, the agency will maximize the existing payment standard amount, which is we can go up to 110% for each voucher. Can go up to the cost of that voucher can go up to 110% of our fair market rent, which means HUD publishes our fair market rents every October, and we can go up to, when I say we can go up, the voucher amount can go up to 110% of that particular fair market rent. So we anticipate to maximize as much as we can of the fair market rent utilizing our payment standards to increase families' chances of securing stable homes, stable housing. Also, we anticipate to increase our family self-sufficiency enrollment and participation. A little further on in my presentation, I'll give a progress report, and I will touch bases on where we were with the FSS program and where we're currently at and what we anticipate to do. Increasing our family self-sufficiency enrollment increases families' opportunities to become homeowners or identify whatever the goals that they've identified, enable them to achieve those goals by working with them and increasing participation through our voucher program. And also reestablishing our homeownership program. So it kind of ties into item number 3, which is our FSS enrollment for homeownership. Families that are eligible can use their vouchers if they're interested in purchasing a home in the city of Vallejo. And so we will, in the next 5 years, work to reestablish that program. Next slide. So I would like to go over our progress report from our previous 5 years and provide some updates. So the Vallejo Housing Authority currently has 2,358 vouchers available to assist low-income families on the program. We're currently at 62% of that number utilized. So, and we also receive HAP funding. The HAP funding is the amount that we receive from HUD to pay our current landlords. And at this time, we have maximized the number of vouchers that we can assist at this time, and we'll continue to lease our programs as funding becomes available, becomes available. During fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 20th, 2024, we opened our waiting list for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. During that period, we received approximately 10,240 applications. Of those applications that created an interest list, we selected 2,500 families off of that interest list to be placed on the actual Housing Choice Voucher waiting list. Of those 2,500 families, we have selected families. In addition, we exhausted our previous waiting list, which was last opened in 2015. And we have exhausted that list and opened and closed our new list, established a new list, and we've totally we've assisted 129 families between both lists. We've also issued RFPs for Project Base, and we've allocated a total of 131 Project Base vouchers during this period. We awarded to Sonoma Estates 97 through it's an award only for new construction that has not been completed yet. It's a new construction. Then we have Sereno Village, and we have Vallejo Housing Collaborative, which I apologize, Vallejo Housing Collaborative is not on the slide, but they are a recipient of the project-based vouchers. And Sereno Village received 31 vouchers, and Vallejo Housing Collaborative received 2. The project-based vouchers is the voucher program that allows the subsidy to be tied to the project itself for a minimum of 1 year up to 20, and with an additional 20-year extension period if agreed upon by the Housing Authority and the owners. Next slide. The Housing Authority will adhere to all policies outlined in the administrative plan regarding VAWA goals and to ensure the agency serves the needs of those under VAWA. Some of those those individuals that receive VAWA are those that are fleeing domestic violence, stalking, threatening behavior, threatening threats and things like that. So we'll make sure that we work within the required regulations to service those families, and also tie those families with the appropriate resources to get additional support. Next slide. Significant amendment, SIG amendment, that's abbreviation, but it means significant amendment. So the Housing Authority is required to identify what constitutes a significant amendment. So in the 5-year plan, a significant amendment has to be identified. So we've identified that a significant amendment will happen when there's changes to our selection and our admissions policy as it relates to selection from the waiting list and adding and including families into the Housing Choice Voucher Program. The Housing Authority updated the administrative plan for the project-based program during this period, during the previous period, and our selection from the waiting list was to include, we work with the continuum of care for assisted units in identifying special set-aside units to serve a certain population. For an example, Blue Oak Landing received special assisted units for 23 set-aside units to service families that are under the No Place Like Home program that serve individuals with severe mental illness. In order to have set-aside units, our administrative plan and our annual plan has to identify it. Next slide. So our 5-year annual plan, 5-year PHA plan require, and our annual plan, subsequent plans, will require to meet with the RAB board, which is a resident advisory board. And we met with the resident advisory board on this particular plan on February 24th. And during that period, there was no comments pertaining to the 5-year plan. There were comments, but they were not comments pertaining to the 5-year plan. Next slide. The Housing Authority will continue to affirmatively further fair housing by continuing to partner with our one of our subrecipients of our grant program, which is Fair Housing Advocates of Northern California, also known as FANCY. And also they, with housing search assistance, we will, publications of information in in the newspaper, fair housing briefings, and we will continue to partner with local community-based organizations as well in order to ensure that we, working towards furthering fair housing opportunities for our recipients of the program. Next slide. With that, that concludes my presentation regarding the five-year PHA plan. I have one clarifying statement to make. The five-year PHA plan is it identifies our goals and our previous goals and our current goals that we set. Following this particular plan, every subsequent year, the Housing Authority will prepare an annual plan to identify the actions and activities that we've taken to meet these goals that's identified in this plan. With that, that concludes my presentation. I'll take questions.
Thank you, Director.
Yes.
I have a few questions.
Uh-huh.
So I know we do this often. We'll go back and roll back. This is a remind me again conversation. Remind me again, you said that there's, on the progress report slide number 5, there's 2,358 vouchers.
Uh-huh.
We're at 60% usage right now. Is that correct?
62%, yes, ma'am.
62% usage. So that means that we do have some vouchers that are available.
The vouchers are available, but we don't have funding for them. Our current payment standards are at 120% of the current FMRs. And during our recent analysis, it's been determined that we are anticipated to be in shortfall for 2025. And when you hit shortfall, HUD prohibits agencies from continuing to issue vouchers because they're going to fund us based on our current number of vouchers. And we don't have enough money to service the number of vouchers that we currently have been allotted.
So is it safe to say, Commissioners, I'm very concerned that we're so close to the 50% mark. You know, I would love to see that number be more like 80.
Me too. I would.
Me too.
We need money.
Versus 62%. For those who are listening tonight, 62%. With that said, clearly I understand it, but I like to be reminded, because what I think we're also missing in there, Director, is later on we're talking about how we plan to continue to inform the public with our newsletters. Could you make a point and note that it's the recommendation of this commission that at some point you outline this conversation for residents? Because when they see that we're at 62%, they're not connecting with the fact that the remaining 38% is not funded. So they feel as though we're holding vouchers when we're clearly not.
So, through the chair,
Yes.
duly noted. And also, part of the, it's not identifying the goals, but actually it is outreach with our landlords to educate. So we anticipate to offer educational sessions to landlords that's interested, new landlords, and also we inform our current participants of where we are, meaning those that are searching, we highly encourage them, don't wait. 4 months, they get 4 months to find a unit. We tell them and encourage them to, if they can lease in place, lease in place. And if you find a unit, 4 months is not a long time. We highly encourage them to find a unit quickly because we know we're going to head into shortfall, and it's a possibility if when that happens, we will have to rescind those vouchers and hold them until we get funding again.
And
yes.
and this is one of my call-outs from this conversation. I know that, and by the way, in the past years, Commissioners, we've done a great job with our landlord workshops. I've attended a couple, and they're very informative. And I think, people get a chance to do a bi-directional communication. But what often happens is the frustration that we tout numbers that we have this many vouchers and we're at 62%. It's such a huge gap. I just want to make sure that we do due diligence in communicating the central message so everyone understands exactly what our, if you will, what our safeguards are. We can't issue more vouchers than we're confident that will be funded. Rescission is so much more difficult than having a voucher go out. I don't know if that makes sense, Commissioners. My point, are there any questions on my point, or?
Through the chair, Director Jones, when this has come up before, and I think that
my understanding, and some of this was the mechanism with HUD, that when VHA receives the payment from HUD for these vouchers, that's a payment for the rent that's already been paid for last year. Is that correct? So that then HUD is sort of basically that puts VHA, my understanding from that was that VHA basically fronts the money for those vouchers for the year.
No.
And then, okay.
Let me
That's a
explain. Yeah,
misunderstanding.
I know where you're going. It's almost there, almost there.
Almost there.
Yeah, thank you.
Almost there. I'll be happy to share. So basically, how it works is Congress appropriates the funds of the budget, right? And then how the HUD receives the funds. HUD has a formula that they determine how much they're going to fund each and every housing authority in the nation. So that amount, I'm starting at the high level, so it'll make sense later on. That amount is 90, at this time is 97.5%. Meaning we used to get 100% of the money. Now we're only going to get 97. So now we losing money there, right? But the money that the 2.5%, that amount goes into, I call it the pool. So when agencies are anticipating their leasing activity and it looks like they're going to be shortfall, HUD goes into that pool, determine who's shortfall, goes into that pool, and that's how they give us the funds to continue to service the families that we were serving. Now, what happens is how we get our money, HUD does, the Housing Authority do not front load. HUD gives us our money based on our prior month's leasing. That's where it's at. So I will say, I'm going to just use March. So they will look at our leasing activity. We have to report every single month. They'll look at our leasing activity for the last several months, and then they will say, okay, there are 1,450 vouchers, and this is how much their HAP payment is to pay those landlords. This is how much we're going to give them for the next 2 months. So they give it to us in like 3 months increments, never all your money at one time. They kind of divvy. That's called cash management. And that's I can't remember the year. It's I don't want to quote the year, but they put this process in place to monitor how much money the housing authority needs so that they won't overspend and don't have money at the end of the year. So it's like they're managing our money. So did that clarify?
100%.
Okay.
Just trying to keep this back.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what happens when it comes to the funding aspect of the program. So right now, as I was saying, we're going to be funded. We're anticipated to be shortfall, and we're going to continue to be funded. But at any given time, HUD, our financial management office, will send us a letter. I just don't know. I'm expecting it. Just don't know when it's coming. That they're going to tell us, okay, you don't have enough money to pay all the landlords through the end of the year. We're going to help you, but you have to meet with our shortfall team. And we're going to put a plan together, and you're going to have to follow our plan to the letter. And that's where we are. So we're highly encouraging our voucher holders that's searching to secure a unit now as fast as they can. As fast as they can.
That is great. So great plan. Thank you for summarizing that for us. I'm sure that's really great information. Commissioner Bundy, do you have any more question? Commissioner Patrick?
I think that this regarding the home ownership program, that was viable given, it's regarding the home ownership program, and I was wondering, given values, how valuable is that for low to moderate income families to become eligible and for that program? And I haven't, and has there been success in the past? That was I'm just curious.
So yes, we have, I believe we have 8 families on our home ownership program right now that use their vouchers. And as far as families becoming eligible, because rents, the market is high, right? The voucher is actually $1. So it increases their eligibility to qualify.
Okay, so Through the chair, of course. I
Yes.
forgot that. Okay, so are the vouchers used as down payments, or how exactly?
So that's
how
where
is
we,
that?
yeah, that's where we partner. So we have staff that we have connections with different entities and groups that help with down payment assistance. And then we have our grants programs, different programs to help with the down payment assistance. The Housing Authority do not pay towards the down payment. We use the voucher for eligibility for qualifying for the project. I mean, the home, I'm sorry. And then also we work with, Cal Halfa, well, we
Okay.
use them as a resource. Cal Halfa, different entities that are available that has funding to support this initiative.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank you.
and how it works, just for the public and for your information, because this question may come up, how does this apply to the families as far as their voucher and their mortgage portion? So basically, the voucher itself it has a dollar. They use their voucher. So if their rent is 30% of their income right now on the voucher, I'm gonna say, I'll use easy number. It's $1,000, but 30% is 300. They pay 300. The voucher is 700, minus any of their utilities, minus any of their homeowners' expenses. All of that is calculated and deducted. And the bottom line number is what the family would pay, and then the overall remaining would be the HAP. It's called the Housing Assistance Payment. And we pay that directly to the bank, or we can pay it directly to the recipient.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you. And through the chair, one more time. So the low to moderate income here in California and even Vallejo is pretty high. Even with a mortgage, you're paying just what I do, $4,000. Are rents that, are your clients paying, or are the low to moderate or recipients of the vouchers paying that much?
So I can't disclose exactly what they're paying,
Okay.
but I'll tell you this: they pay between 30 and 40% of their income, their monthly adjusted income. They pay between 30 to 40%, and the rest is paid by the Housing Authority through the HAP.
Okay, and that'll happen with the home ownership program as well.
That is the home ownership program
that
as
is
well.
the- okay.
It mirrors the voucher program, because this is a voucher, and this voucher has a dollar value. So if I'll just use easy numbers, if the voucher is worth $1,000 to qualify for the unit, that's what, 1,000 times 12 times however many years, that increases your buying ability.
I see.
You see, so because otherwise you wouldn't qualify. So at one point, banks did not accept the voucher as a form of for eligibility, but they've come around now and they understand the value of it, and that this is a dollar value. This is guaranteed. So it kind of encourages the banks to participate. So, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bundy.
So through the chair, this is semantics. The mission statement here. It says provide quality housing in high resource neighborhoods as a foundation. What's a high resource neighborhood?
Opportunity areas that have schools, areas that have, transportation areas, access to areas that's not in a congested area where it's not enough resources, where there's no stores. That's the goal. And how you meet that goal, Commissioner Bundy, is to work to try and increase project base in those areas, addressing that goal by working with families and encouraging families to go to different areas outside this area, because it's probably easier to qualify for a unit here because my credit is not as well as it should be. So they wouldn't go to those areas. So we work with them to encourage them and help and connect them with resources to help build themselves up so that they can find housing in areas that's opportunity areas.
Yeah, I personally get stuck on it because there's an element that seems exclusionary
How so?
in that clause. So would would the housing authority not fund a voucher in a non-high resourced area?
No, that's not what it's saying. No, that's not what it's saying, Commissioner Bundy. So the goal in the mission, excuse me, the goal is to encourage in opportunity areas. That's the goal. We want to deconcentrate poverty in high poverty areas. So the goal is to increase opportunities in high opportunity areas. So it's not exclusionary at all. It's actually designed specifically to deconcentrate poverty,
Yeah, so moving to opportunity.
to move into opportunities. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, are there any other questions? Okay. Hearing no other questions, the resolution still stands for item 9A. And I know that we need to take action on item 9A. Recommendation.
So through the chair, on page 2B3, the progress report, under the second, where is it? The where it lists Sonoma Estates, the number is incorrect. Yeah, it should be 97 there, and then that persists through the document.
Director, on page number 9 for the citizens' participation. You do have that, okay. Could you make sure you hold me for that one? I want to have a conversation about that. So this is strictly for the plan. I want to give the commissioners just one more minute to look through it. My concern, commissioners, as you read over this, is that I don't necessarily see a lot of construction plans for the city of Vallejo around housing. My concern for this is that I think our population is growing and the needs are multiplying, and I don't know of new construction sites happening in the city. Are there any new construction sites happening in the city?
Through the chair, the actual constructions and development of new construction sites is through the city manager's office, and I am not able to speak on that as we work with the grants and things like that. But I will take your question regarding the construction sites and identifying how many, if any, and I'll report back. Is that okay?
That is perfect. Thank you.
Through the chair, I guess one of these looming things that I have, the neighborhood stabilization program.
Yes.
How does that fit into this annual plan? Somewhere I saw a table.
This is what the HCV PHA plan for the
that's
Section
a
8.
later-
Huh?
Yeah, because I saw somewhere a table listed with $920,000, and I wanted to know where that number came from.
So in regards to the plan, the PHA plan, NSP is not affiliated with it. That this is the Housing Choice Voucher Program for the PHA plan for the 5 years. NSP is part of our grants program, which is a different program. And I believe, through the chair, I'm sorry. And I believe that we've communicated this information in a previous email to you and the commission some time ago regarding the 900,000 that you're referring to for NSP. And we'll be happy to re-forward that email to you.
It doesn't, we'll get to it later in the agenda.
Okay.
Through the chair. Through the chair.
Yes.
The other question that came up is, that I had was the differences between this 5-year plan, or what are the major differences between this 5-year plan and the previous year's 5-year plan? Are there any significant differences, or do they mirror one another? I didn't.
Through the chair. So on, let me see here. Our progress report on B3.
B3?
B3 is our progress report on our previous plan that was approved for the previous 5-year period.
Okay.
That's the update as far as the progress that we've made towards those goals.
Thank you.
And Director, just for the record, could you also make mention to the fact that we came in last year at a loss? And so this is the first year of stabilization for the housing department. So, Commissioner Patrick, for the last year prior, we were at a loss and had to do some reorganization and some staffing changes. I do want to just make a note here, just from a form of communication, and also to note for those who are listening, when we look at our priorities, we have some pretty diverse priorities in the consolidated plan. In addition to extremely low income, we have large families. We have elderly, chronic homelessness. We have families with children mentally ill. We have substance abuse veterans, victims of domestic violence. Unaccompanied youth is on this list. Elderly, frail elderly, persons with disabilities, persons with physical disabilities, persons with developmental disabilities, one day everyone, victims of domestic violence and non-housing community development. There's a lot with just a few vouchers.
So, through the chair, I would like to clarify that the consolidated plan is the 5-year consolidated plan for the overall Vallejo, city of Vallejo. Yeah, and we have our consultant and who assisted us with the development of the consolidated plan, and I am anxious for him to speak, and he and his team can give you some information as far as the information that was
Thank you.
gathered.
I look forward to that discussion.
Yeah.
So where we are at this time, calling time is 7:50. I don't think there were any callers on the line.
None at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And we can move with item 9. It's such a large item, but I want to make sure we get to it this evening. 5-year public housing agency plan. I think I'll start with this part for the record. Given what I've seen, there are definitely some opportunities that we have in the city of Vallejo, but most of those opportunities really do exist in a department much higher than ours. It is a consolidated effort of our city to work toward a unification of all of these stratagems and come up with a good plan for the residents of Vallejo. As far as the Vallejo Housing and Community Development Commission, it is our response to item 9A. Commissioners, are you ready to make a motion on the floor?
So
Yes.
I'll make the motion to approve the 5-year public housing agency plan for fiscal year 2025 through 26, 29, 30, fiscal year 25, 26. Annual public housing agency plan and authorizing the submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Human Development.
Thank you. Can I have someone?
I second.
Thank you so much. Roll call, please.
Commissioners Bundy,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, we're now looking at 9B. 9B is the one that's the recommendation to approve the proposed revisions to the City of Vallejo Citizens Participation Plan. Here's the recommendation. The recommendation is to recommend a resolution by the Housing and Community Development Commission to the Housing Authority of the City of Vallejo, Housing Authority Board of Directors, authorization of an executive director to execute the approval of the amendments to the City of Vallejo Citizen Participation Plan. And my question before we get started, do we have someone in mind for this executive director position?
Through the chair, the executive director is Andrew Murray.
Director, speak more.
You would like clarification on the executive director?
I would like clarification of his start date. Did he start? Is this a recent appointment?
No, so we're the housing authority, right? And then it's the housing authority and the community development. And it's a department under the city of Vallejo. And so there's the directors, there's the assistant direct, there's the directors, and then there's an executive director. And when it comes to HUD programs, your executive director is the one who could sign contracts, and also on behalf, excuse me, and on the behalf of the city, the executive director is the person assigned.
Can we ask for Andrew Murray to introduce himself to this commission?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, through the chair?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, I want to make a clarification. So for item 9B, so the Citizen of Vallejo, the City of Vallejo Citizen Participation Plan actually is not for the Housing Authority Board. It is, so we have within our department kind of two divisions in our department. So we have the Housing Authority side of the department, which handles the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And then we have the rest of the grants, which are CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Program, and the Home Investment Partnerships Program.
Right.
So this item 9B is, there's an error. It shouldn't be under the Housing Authority side of the department. This should be under the CDBG and Home.
So are you removing item 9B from this agenda?
No, I'm just making a clarification, Chair. Although it is correct that the executive director is the city manager, but for the citizen participation plan, it would be this is specifically for CDBG and home-related items.
So, thank you, Shari. And where I'm going with this a little bit, let me clarify. I'm so sorry. So for the past 4 years, I've sat on this commission, and I have promoted what's best for the city and the interest of city management. This year, and I've given orientation to other commissioners that have gone on now, and they're part of city council. This commission needs some introduction to this beyond my capacity as chair. So my request to have Mr. Murray or someone from his department come and express this as a focal part that happens every year, the CDBG grants, and all the work that we've done is a small ask. So whether it is Mr. Murray or someone from his team, I would like to request that they present themselves to this commission. This is a new commission. These are not, with the exception of Commissioner Bundy, these are not commissioners that are prepared for what I think is to come in the upcoming years of needs for the housing authority, as well as they've gone through I think with the confidence that we put in the board, they voted well for the construction projects. They've lived through the errors in our previous reports. They've lived through the changes in staffing, and we've lived through the changes in management as far as director of the housing authority. And I do think it's a small thing that someone from that department helped to express the importance of this item, not just a single item, but their effort in the future. And if you're clarifying, so I might change my request, please state your point, or I will persist in my request to have someone either come and introduce themselves so that this commission can better understand exactly how that works.
Through the chair, understood.
Understood.
Understood. I will take your request and up the chain.
I appreciate that. So Commissioner Patrick, how this works, and you may remember a little bit, I can't remember if you were here for the CDBG grants last year.
No.
I didn't think you were.
Well,
You were
I
here,
didn't
new.
attend the meeting or the Saturday activity
Yes.
that all the other commissioners, I think, attended.
Okay.
I did not attend that.
And being that this commission is slightly off kiltered, thank you for waiting, sir. This commission is slightly off kiltered in that we have our more seasoned commissioners no longer a part of the commission. As you know, Commissioner James is now our supervisor, and Commissioner Ledesju is now a city council member. And so in my ask of item 9B, it's more about ensuring that there is organizational history, and that that we all understand the priorities. So on this item, this CDBG block grant is probably one of the more participated elements of community work that happens in the city of Vallejo. And I say that with quotes, and I think people know well about it. So the recommendation to approve a proposed revision to the Vallejo Citizen Participation Plan is where we are. But before we take a vote, I think there's a presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, through the chair, we have Community Development Department had procured the services of John Callow, who is a consultant and a subject matter expert in CDBG, who assisted us with our Citizens Participation Plan, and is prepared to provide a presentation on the item before you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Callow. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Good evening, and welcome to sunny Tennessee, except it's dark here.
No worries. I live close to you. I live in Arkansas, so I'm sure the weather is just fine there. Thank you.
Oh, it'll be better tomorrow. It'll be better tomorrow.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for letting me address you. First, on the subject of this Citizens Participation Plan, and I believe they do have a slideshow to show you. There we go. All right, I ordinarily get to click through these myself, so I don't think I have that capacity. There we go. So this is why we have to have a citizen participation plan, because the HUD rule that governs community development block grant funds says you have to. And the criteria for that public participation plan are spelled out in the federal rules governing the consolidated plan, the annual action plans, which is 24 CFR 91. So, next slide. Click, click, click. Okay, there we go. I need to talk about what a consolidated plan is. Vallejo gets a community development block grant every year. They also get HOME, which is another one of the community planning and development programs through HUD. What we have to do every 5 years is do what is essentially a strategic plan, and then that strategic plan is backed up with annual action plans. So think of the consolidated plan as the strategy, and then the action plans are the tactics for making that plan happen. Next. Now, I thought that was very interesting when Director Jones was talking about her significant amendments for public housing. They don't call them significant, even though it's HUD. In CPD, the Community Planning and Community Planning and Development silo at HUD, what is a significant amendment for public housing is a substantial amendment for CDBG and home. In this consolidated plan, we're going to develop, identify community needs, goals, and come up with this strategic plan. Sometimes you have to make changes, all right? And so we have to talk about substantial amendments. What happens if we have to make major changes to that consolidated plan? And that's what the citizen participation plan is all about. If a new goal is identified or the need for reallocation of funds, then we have to tell HUD how we're going to go about implementing those changes. All right, and then you go through that process also for this citizens participation plan. All right, next slide. So we have Vallejo currently has a citizen participation plan. You've had a citizen participation plan for as long as you've had community development block grant money, which is, 30, 35 years. The number is lost in antiquity. Why are you being asked to revise and amend the current plan? Well, there are three reasons. Back in 2020, you may recall, or you may not recall, since so many of you are new at this, HUD or the Congress recognized that there were issues that they were related to COVID-19. And so Congress established a new program, a Community Development Block Grant CV program, to get money to communities to help communities deal with issues related to the pandemic. And one of the things that HUD said was, we want you to change your participation plans, and so that instead of 30 days, like is noted in the rule, we're going to, in this new program, since it's going to have a new set of legislation, we're going to allow 15 days, and we're also going to allow you to do virtual public hearings. And to make that happen, we had to go through a substantial amendment process for the citizens participation plan. Well, the 15-day proposition is no longer in effect. So we need to go back and change the language so that it's updated. That's one reason. All right. I think in the next slide, there we go. No longer in effect. So what we're recommending, though, is rather than just take it out altogether, we are the draft participation plan that we've written for you uses language which would allow us to, rather than go through a substantial amendment process, should HUD decide to start tinkering with those timelines again, it would allow us to go in and do it without having to go through the process, which, since it's the same process that you do for the consolidated plan or an action plan, it could add 60 to 90 days depending on how meetings and hearings set out. So the new language would allow us to do to make any changes that HUD issues new guidelines for without having to go through the substantial amendment process. Okay. Second reason. All right. The San Francisco field office of HUD has recommended that the city revise its citizen participation plan to be more specific and more closely aligned with the requirements of 24 CFR Part 91-105. That's the part of the rule that deals with the citizen participation plan. Now, that's not to say that there's anything missing in the current plan. They just want it a little organized a little bit more succinctly. And I think the draft that we prepared for you does just that. Okay? Next slide. All right, those are the things that comes straight out of the rule. That's tiny writing in it. But what it's saying is that there are certain steps that have to be part of the citizen participation plan, and that's what they are. And so we've reorganized. You have to have a plan for the consolidated plan for action plan, a plan for substantial amendment, and then a plan for approving the end of the year report, which for CDBG is called the CAPER, which is this consolidated annual plan report. So it's an acronym that I don't even remember what it stands for, but it's the end of the year report. And so we've, in our revision, we've incorporated things like the public notice and public hearings and comment periods. Those are listed for each of the 4 documents that would be covered by the citizen participation plan. Okay, next. All right, this is an example. So for each of the documents, you've got the same headings, which means that we're going to do a minimum of 2 public hearings each year. We're going to begin advertising at least 14 days prior to each public hearing. And here's this language that allows, unless HUD issues guidance calling for a shorter number of calendar days, that's the provision that allows you to go in and make revisions to that public notice if it is following HUD guidelines. And then the comment period, written period comments on the draft plan, and this would be that language would be changed for each one of the 4 documents covered, but accepting public comment for 30 days. That's already in the current citizen participation plan. This just clarifies it so that you can look at each one of those 4 documents and see what is public hearing is going to be about, what public notice is going to be, and the comment periods. Okay. Reason 3. One of the things that you have to put into your citizen participation plan, you have to specify the criteria that the city is going to use if you decide that you need to change money from one eligible activity to another. That number is up to the local city to decide. Currently, that number is 15%. So Chairman Jones and her staff can move up to 15% of that annual allocation from one pot to another pot without having to go through a substantial amendment. But what happens is that 15% really is limiting. So Chairman Jones and I have had, our Director Jones and I have had conversations about this, and we're suggesting that 15% be changed to 40%. And what they would do, it would allow the department to move funds from one eligible activity to another in a more expeditious fashion. If you needed to move 16% right now, you go through the substantial amendment process, which means you're going to be looking at 60 days between the time you start the hearing process, go through 2 hearings, and then a 30-day comment period. Now, we need to be clear that when if we're moving money, we're moving money from one activity that's already been approved and gone through this hearing process to another activity that's gone through the same process. Now, if we wanted a new activity, then we would go through the substantial amendment. This just allows us to move money within our budget in a more expeditious fashion. All right. Do I have anything more? There we go. I think I just said all of this. So the process can take 45, 60 days, or even longer, depending on how meeting schedules work out. So anyway, that is our recommendation, that we amend and revise the plan so that we take care of those 3 concerns. Questions?
Thank you so much for
Comments?
such a great. Thank you so much for such a great detailed plan. And I know that it's late there in Tennessee, so I appreciate you staying up with us. I do just have one question for you.
Sure.
When it talks about this micro enterprise assistance, can you tell me what that really means?
Sure. We're talking. Is that part of the participation plan?
No, sorry, that's a different conversation.
Okay. Well, I can still tell you about
I didn't have
microenterprise.
that conversation.
Microenterprise is an eligible activity for CDBG, and what it allows you to do is assist a small business of 5 or fewer employees. Those 5 or few employees, including the owner, have to be low or moderate income, and you can run your program in a lot of different ways. I ran one here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, when I was the community development director here, and we worked with a couple of partners. We worked with the Small Business Center at Middle Tennessee State University, and then we worked with a couple of the banks. And what we were doing was assisting these new businesses with funds to get started and keep going. We had a couple of success stories, but there's a reason why a small business is coming to the city for funding instead of going to the bank. Now, it doesn't have to be a new business. My friends down in Miami used to use microenterprise money to assist existing businesses, and it became it was a grant. Mine was a loan. You can do it as a grant. You can do it as a loan. But what Miami did was a grant, and they just gave one a year, but they were usually pretty successful with helping those businesses get going. I know we did it here in Murfreesboro 10 years ago, and we funded 5 businesses. One of them is still in business today. One of them lasted 2 years. The others lasted less than a year, which is kind of standard for small business, I think. Does that help?
It does. That was perfect. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Sure. Oh, and I'd love to come tell you all about CDBG.
Yes, I may have you come and do that. Absolutely.
I've actually been to Vallejo. We've had several contracts with housing community development, and a couple of years ago we came out and did a staff training. So we enjoyed our time out there.
We're very happy to hear that, and so we want to keep you close by. So thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
Can we just a couple of questions? So I'm opening the floor
Sure.
to the commissioners.
In the document under section 6, technical assistance,
Right.
the first sentence there is missing a number. It says the city of Vallejo shall provide up to hours per year of technical assistance.
We left, that was, I remember that particular sentence, and I had a question about that.
Or down
Can you hear me okay? Okay. Super. I had a question about that because they had the previous plan had defined a specific number of hours. The way the rule is written, and it actually comes under both the CDBG rules, and there's also a requirement to provide technical assistance in 2 CFR 200, which is an Office of Management budget rule. They require you to provide technical assistance to prospective subrecipients. And there's nothing in the rules that that talks about the number of hours. I was a little bit uncomfortable with that, but that again is a local decision, and so that needs to be filled in locally, if at all.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does help. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Commissioner Patrick, any questions?
Digesting? No, I'm just digesting it.
Thank you.
But you know what? But now that you asked, through the chair, I know that through my reading, San Francisco, unless I've read something different, San Francisco suggested that we make a revision to the CPP, and I was wondering just exactly, did he address that or why? But why exactly was it? I don't know. I'm not sure. And that was, it looks like the San Francisco office recommended that we make changes, and I wasn't sure why.
Yeah, they were interested in specificity is the way that was passed on to me. And so that's why instead of having a separate session for public notice, and I thought that it would address that question if we, and you'll notice there's a certain amount of redundancy if you've got a copy of the draft. For each of those 4 documents, they're formatted pretty similarly, as I recall, and that's to address that need for specificity. So if you want to know what the comment period for a con plan is, it's there. If you want to know what the public notice for an annual action plan, it's there. If you want to know what the comment period for the CAPE or the end of the year report, that's there as well. So each one of them is structured similarly, but that's to address that question of specificity. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Patrick. Any other questions? Then I turn my attention back to the recommendation on the floor. First, I want to thank Mr. John Callow. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you for going a little bit deeper. And I know, again, it's late there, so we really want to appreciate your time. And if the commissioners are ready, we will now move toward a motion for item 9B.
9B, where is that?
John, one more question I'm hearing from
Sure.
the commissioners before you go.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm here for the next item too.
Oh, thank you. It's going to be a great conversation. Let's talk a little bit more about the 40%.
Okay.
That it can be moved as long as it's for an approved item already on the list. Is that correct?
That's correct.
John, does that mean that
Here's an example, and I'm going to give you an example from my direct experience. I remember about 10 or 12 years ago, we had an activity that we had funded, and it was going south on us. And we were not going to get that money spent If with CDBG, if the HUD has a couple of timeliness quizzes that they do. You've got to get the money out the door. And if we knew that this particular activity was not going to get the money out the door, 3 months in, we realized we had made a mistake, or it wasn't a mistake, but it was just not moving like it was going to, needed to. So, but we needed to get the money out the door. So we were able to move, at that time, we had 15%. We were able to move, and we knew to the penny what 15% was. We were able to move that into another program that we knew we could get the money out the door. We would have done a better job if I could have moved 25 or 30% within the department, within one eligible activity to another, to help us with our timeliness.
So John, was
Yeah.
in that scenario, was it all CDBG related?
Oh, yes.
So it's all CDBG related.
Yeah, we're talking about CDBG money here. Yeah.
Fantastic. So in our case, we've had that problem in the past.
Yes.
We've approved applications for services, and the money just was not spent because they could not justify
Right.
receipts, and so
Yeah.
therefore it sat. But in sitting, it also did not. What I'd like to see happen, I think the commissioners may agree with me, is when CDBG money is awarded, and for consecutive years we award it to the same organizations, but they're not able to spend it, that they be removed from the list of eligibility. Either that.
One of the things, part of our contract, Madam Chairman, is to provide ongoing technical assistance. And that very issue that you're talking about is one of the things that we are in conversation with the staff right now.
Okay.
And my colleague, Gene Adcock, has been working with staff to develop, and to help develop a new process, for instance, to award public service money.
Okay. Then I think if you're saying within the CDBG arena of work,
Yeah.
it's for the same year, and it solves one of our bigger issues of reviewing
That's right.
applications, then I think that Commissioner Bundy and Patrick and I are aligned. Is that correct? Okay. Now we're ready to make a movement on the item 9B.
Yeah.
So 9B simply states, our recommendation is to recommend through a resolution to the Housing and Community Development Commission, to the Housing Authority of the City of Vallejo, Housing Authority Board of Directors, authorizations of an executive director to execute approval of amendments to the City of Vallejo Citizen Participation Plan, CPP. Can I have a motion on the floor, please?
Our motion to approve the proposed revisions to City of Vallejo Citizen Participation Plan.
Second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Through the chair, yeah, we just wanted to make sure that we amend the title to the Housing Authority of the City of Vallejo, Housing Authority Board of Directors, to change it to the City Council.
Can I ask that you also provide a reprint of that for correction before I sign off on the agenda before the next meeting, at the next meeting? Could you make that adjustment on your copy? And before I sign off on the agenda at the future meeting, can that correction be made?
Yes, through the chair.
So no. So the motion still stands with the amendment. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioners Bundy,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 9C. 9C, recommendation to conduct a public hearing for fiscal year 2025 through 30 consolidated plan and fiscal year 2025 through 26 annual action plan, AP. The recommendation is to conduct a public hearing. No other action will be taken. And there's a presentation, I think, again, by Mr. Callow.
And that is me again. So we're going to talk a little bit about this consolidated plan We're going to talk a little bit about how it all fits together with Community Development Block Grant and also the Home Partnership Program. Next slide. Some of these slides we can go through very quickly. CDBG is, of course, a nationwide program evolved during the Nixon administration. It was originally, the program was conceived as a way, there were 7 different programs, urban renewal, model cities, there were 7 of them. And somebody finally figured out that local communities could probably make better decisions about how to use some of this money instead of having somebody up in D.C. make those decisions. And so that's why they came up with the Community Development Block Grant, which was the statutory background is the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. Can you tell I've taught this before?
Yes.
Next slide, please. Yeah, here's the whole idea. You guys can make better decisions about your local needs than somebody up in D.C. Okay? Here's how it works. Congress allocates, HUD disperses each entitlement, and you are an entitlement entity, is responsible for planning how to spend it and then doing so. Right now, of course, we've got a problem because Congress still hasn't passed the budget for the current fiscal year. So we're going to talk about how we are doing a workaround on that. So anyway, the rule tells grantees what they can do. Every activity has to be eligible through the rule, has to meet a national objective. And all of your activities in Vallejo meet the national objective that's benefiting low and moderate income persons. Okay? I think you, Madam Chairman, you were talking about some of the things on this list earlier in the evening, and those are all, of course, those are all eligible activities. There is no way that anybody has enough money to dip their fingers into all of them. So part of the consolidated plan process is figuring out what the local needs are and then matching up those needs with eligible activities. Okay? Here's some things you can't do, though. Unfortunately, you can't do new housing construction unless there's a community-based development organization, and there is not one in Vallejo. We know that from past experience. You can't use it for general government expenses. You can't use it for operating and maintenance. This one always kills me. We could assist Parks and Rec using CDBG money to build a park, for instance, in a low-income neighborhood. But once the park is built, you can't go back and cut the grass. Or you can fix streets, but you can't mend streets. You can't use the money at City Hall, and you can't give money directly to low and moderate income persons. Okay? Low and moderate income people are those folks in the community at 80% or less than the area median income. And as one of your commissioners pointed out, that median income in Vallejo is pretty high. Those numbers are not nationwide. HUD looks at every single metropolitan statistical area, has a chart for each of those. So those income levels here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where I am tonight, are very different from what they are in Vallejo. But if I went up to Bristol, Tennessee, which is up in the Appalachians in the far northeast corner of Tennessee, their median income is considerably lower than here. So, okay. This is what I was just saying. There we go. Your AMI, the area median income for a family four right now is 113,200. To give you an example, here in Murfreesboro, it's closer to 85. And so 80% of that AMI is 100,000, and that's for a family four. When your staff has to, and your subrecipients look at the clients that they will be assisting, they're going to look at an income chart that HUD prepares annually, and those numbers are adjusted then for family size. Okay? So here's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the plan. You have to do the consolidated plan. The reason it's called a consolidated plan is because HUD has 4 programs in their community planning and development silo. The CDBG program, the home program, also the Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG program, and HOPA, which is Housing for Persons with AIDS. In Vallejo, you receive CDBG money, you receive home money, okay? So every 5 years, you have to do a new consolidated plan. And then each year, the first year is part of the consolidated plan. So that's why we're hearing about the consolidated plan and the first year action plan tonight. In the subsequent 4 years, all we'll be doing is an annual action plan. Okay. Here's the calendar that we've been working on. We're having our second public hearing tonight. Earlier, you had a first public hearing, and during that, we've been accepting comments. On 22nd of April, if your commission, after having this public hearing, passes it on to the council, hopefully they will approve it on the 22nd of April. 15th of May or 16th of May is the deadline for submitting the plan, and then first day of the new action plan would be the 1st of July. Now, unfortunately, we've got some issues. Congress has not gotten around to passing a budget for the fiscal year that began October. We're 5.5 months into the fiscal year. There is no budget. So at this point, HUD has nothing to work with to figure out what your allocation for the next year is going to be. It looks like they're going to, at least the House is talking about passing a permanent continuing resolution, which is kind of a way of saying, well, we can't, there are not enough of us to agree on a real budget. So what we're going to do is basically take last year's budget and pull it forward. And if that's what ends up happening, then HUD will sit down with their allocation, play with the numbers. There are some formulas they have to work. They'll come back and tell you what the thing is. So maybe you'll have those numbers by the 16th of May. Maybe you won't. But what we're proposing are some contingencies as a workaround, so that once you do get the actual allocation, you'll be able to plug them in, hit submit, and we've already taken care of all of the timing issues, the public hearings and the comments. Okay? So here's the deal. HUD has told its grantees that they don't want to see consolidated plans until they've released the annual allocations. And as of today, like I said, there are no annual allocations. Ordinarily, we would have seen those in February. well, it's now at the beginning of February, maybe even in January. Of course, now it's the middle of March. We still don't have a clue. Now, once those, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but this is important to know what those steps are and why we're recommending the provisional funding that we are. Once they approve the HUD budget, President signs off, they have to apply the formula, and there are two formulas that they have to look at, and they'll give you the best deal, whichever formula works best. Then OMB, the Office of Management Budget, has to sign off. Then you can get along, and that process, once they approve that budget, can take as long as 60 days, and I've seen it take longer. Okay. Let me pause for just a second here, Madam Chairman. Any questions on what we've said so far?
No questions. I think looking at the timeline that you provided, the calendar, I think we're all in sync with you.
Okay, good. Okay, so what we are recommending in this, we are using provisional funding levels. It's based on level funding, okay? And what we're asking then is we're presenting totals for the hearing process based on level funding. And then what we're asking for is conditional approvals. And what we're going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you this several times before I get to slide 40 or whatever that last one is, the provisional funding, and like I said, we're basing it on level funding. Now, if the number comes in higher, all right, then we're going to make adjustments. If it comes in higher, and I wrote my notes so that I would get this exactly right. So if you'll give me a second here. Okay. If the number comes in higher, what we're going to do is increase admin by 20% of that higher amount. There are two funding caps involved in community development block grant money. The city is allowed to spend up to 20% of the allocation for administrative expenses. And let me tell you, from experience, that is always, that figure is pretty close. Now, there is also another spending cap, and that means that we can spend no more than 15% of our funding for public services. So all this provisional funding has to keep those two caps in mind. So if it comes in higher, we're proposing to increase the funding for admin with 20% of that increase. 80% of that increase would go to the rehab program. Now, if the allocation comes in lower, we would reduce public service funding. We would adjust that to stay within the 15% cap. We would adjust the admin money to stay within the 20% cap, and any balance not covered by those two would constitute a reduction in the rehab. Any questions about that?
Yes,
we need to be really clear what the provisions are there.
No problem.
Okay, good deal.
So let's just take a quick moment and sync up. Commissioners, questions on the floor? So just to be clear, you're making this change to ensure that we're not upside down.
That's right.
And that we maintain the ability to fund programs. If there is a slush amount in the end, it will go toward rehab. Is that correct?
That 20% of whatever that flush amount would be would go to increasing admin money.
Okay.
Okay, that's that's paying for the telephone and the copy machine and salaries and all of the things that go to running an office. And then any excess over that 20 would go into the rehab program.
Okay, thank you. I got
Yeah. And of course, the reason we're doing this, it's all about timing. Because if we waited till the actual allocation comes in, who knows when that's going to happen. And if you waited then and start the process then, you really run into some time issues because you have to submit, it's actually statutory. Con plan has to be submitted no later than August 15th. So that's kind of what you're backed up against. That's why we're taking this avenue. All right. Any more questions?
No. You're doing a great job.
You guys are great. Okay, let's move on. So as I said, we're based on, we're recommending conditional approval and provisional funding. And what we're trying to do is save you a lot of time on the back end so that we can actually start getting the money out the door and helping the people of Vallejo. Okay? So the way HUD divides the plan into 4 sections. They talk about the process. They talk about needs assessment. You do a market analysis. You do a strategic plan. The process, I'll go through this very quickly. The process is all about consultation, and we have this long list that is in the rule of different organizations, individuals that we have to consult with. And our team has worked with the community development staff to make sure that that consultation process has been done and meets HUD standards. Part of that was we developed several, well, actually, it's 4 different surveys that were sent out. Some folks got a lot of surveys, and we were kind of pleased with the response. Just on the surveys alone, we had almost 50 replies, which may not sound much like much in a city your size, but I guarantee you my city would have been thrilled to get 50 replies to anything. So anyway, here's what we've heard, though. And in addition to those surveys, we also did some one-on-one interviews. There were other meetings. So we've consulted in a number of different ways, and those are covered in the consolidated plan draft. And here's what we've heard. The Vallejo CDBG assets should be used throughout the city rather than being restricted to low, moderate neighborhoods. I guess the best way of putting that is you got low income folks in every single census tract in the city. So you don't want to restrict yourself from being able to serve the folks who would be most in need. And the housing programs should be targeted to owner-occupied units rather than rental units, which is one of the reasons we're talking about housing rehab. That would be owner-occupied housing rehab. Okay? The needs assessment, you've got all these different sections. There are lots and lots of numbers. If you look at the draft, you'll see all kinds of charts. Most of those are, most of that data is pre-populated by HUD when you set up the con plan template in the HUD database system. All right, but you have to cover housing needs. You have to cover public housing, which is really easy for you guys since it's right across the room. It's not always easy to get the city and the public housing people talking to each other. You do have to talk about homeless needs, and you guys have really done a great job over the years working with the homeless I remember when my colleague Keith Lampkin and I were coming out, we ended up having to not be able to stay in Vallejo because where we would have stayed had been rented by the city to take care of homeless folks that winter. You have to talk about non-homeless special needs as well and non-community development needs, okay? Of course, the partner is Vallejo Housing Authority, and they're all kind of wrapped together. Next. One of the things you have to talk about is cost burden. And for both renters and homeowners, you'll see all kinds of interesting numbers in your draft plan. And you'll see that that's probably the most significant housing problem for residents of Vallejo. Anybody who is paying more than 30% of their monthly income for housing is cost burden. If you're paying more than 50%, you're extremely cost burden. And when you've got housing that's expensive, you've got a lot of cost burden folks in your community. Okay. There you go. There's an example of one of the charts. Shows up for renters and for owners. There are probably 10 or 15 more charts in the plan. Okay. Oh, there you go. That's we talked about the 30% cost burden. This is folks who are more than 50% cost burden, and you'll notice that elderly seems to be where that really lands heavy.
Can I ask really quickly?
Yeah, fire away. Yes.
What is other?
Oh, other is that is folks who are not in small families, large families, or elderly. So it's usually single people.
Thank you.
Yeah. Those numbers are developed by HUD, and they are partially developed with assistance from the Census Bureau. So they're using census data as part of that.
Okay.
And then they've got a couple of other data sources. All right, there we go. Needs assessment. So what we found out, or what y'all have found out, is that you've got some cost burden problems, severely cost burden for renters, seniors living alone, and households headed by single females. In fact, of all the households in Vallejo with children under 18, 29% are headed by single females. All right. Homelessness, you're part of the first, the Housing First Vallejo Solano County Continuum of Care. The Continuum of Care program is a program that was developed by the HUD Special Needs Department, and they make money available to nonprofits. And it's really important that the city stay involved with that to make sure that the money goes to the people who need the nonprofits that can deliver the most bang for the buck. Next.
Excuse me, through the chair.
Yes.
May I address?
Yes.
So the city, just for the public and for the commissioners,
Yeah.
the city do partner currently with the Continuum of Care.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Address homelessness.
And one of the activities that we're recommending for in the action plan for funding is the I got to put on my glasses so I can read this little bitty writing, but it is the housing. It's the delivery headquarters. There's I'll get the right name when I get there. My apologies for that. I should be better informed. Okay. Yes, very much. We need to emphasize that the city has really gone way beyond what is required on assisting the homeless. You also have to assess needs for public services, public facilities, public infrastructure. All right. Market analysis. This is another section that you're trying to get a clear picture of the environment. And most of the tables, again, are pre-populated with data. In a number of cases, we found better data. So whenever possible, we've used that better data or more up-to-date data in the market analysis sections. Okay. And those are the topics that are covered. Broadband needs and hazard mitigation were not originally part of this consolidated plan process. They were added 5 or 6 years ago. And one of the things I think we've found is that the city of Vallejo is served fairly well with broadband. Hazard mitigation, sitting on the bay, you guys know how to handle those issues. Okay. Here's the important part, the strategic plan. This is where we're going to identify our needs, then prioritize them, and then set our goals for the next 5 years. And we develop these through that consultation, through interviews, meetings, surveys, public input. And these are the 2 priority needs: affordable housing, community, and public services. So when we looked at priority needs, then you've got to develop goals. These would be our goals over the next 5 years. Not all of them are going to get done in the first year. It's entirely possible some of them may not get done within the first 5 years. But unless you identify a goal now, I always advise painting with a broad brush. One of the things that I always did in my con plans was throw in economic development, even though I had 0 plans for doing economic development in 5 years. And then in the third or fourth year, I can't remember, was it year 3 or year 4, all of a sudden we decided we were going to do micro enterprise, which was economic development. And because we had already named that, we were able to come back and do that in the action plan without having to do a substantial amendment to the original consolidated plan. So these are the priority needs, or the goals that have been identified. Increase affordable housing opportunities, do owner-occupied single-family housing rehab, public services, promote fair housing, enhance public facilities, homelessness prevention services, and support these programs through program administration. Okay. One of the things you have to identify is your geographic priorities, and what we're recommending based on the feedback we got in the consultation process is to designate citywide rather than developing target areas. In the past, Vallejo has done target areas, and fairly successfully. We think that a better approach now, though, would be citywide. That gives you the flexibility to fund activities anywhere in the city. Anticipated reminder. This is where I get to remind you again that as of today, Congress has not passed the budget. They may pass a budget. The House has scheduled a vote on a continuing resolution, a permanent continuing resolution for tomorrow. The last I heard was they still weren't sure that they had the votes to get it passed. And then there's no guarantee that the votes will be there in the Senate. So they've got to do something, though, or the government, federal government, closes down on Friday. So because of that, we are again, and I want to make sure everybody is clear on this. We're recommending provisional funding based on level funding, and we're seeking conditional approvals based on correcting those numbers up or down, as I outlined earlier, once the allocation is presented from HUD. You can't submit it until you have that allocation. This would allow us then just to rejigger those numbers higher or lower, and we told you where they're going to be. And that way, as soon as we get the numbers, then the department can hit the submit button and you'll be in business. Okay? Over the next year, that would mean an annual allocation of just over $1 million. We were told to expect something in the neighborhood of $15,000 in program income, and then there's money that is still in the line of credit. So you would have approximately $2,500,000 available next year in CDBG. Vallejo is a home participating jurisdiction, but because of some issues, HUD has kind of put a vacation on HUD on home for the next 2 years. There's still home money though from program income and prior years. So we are budgeting no new money for home, but allocating existing funds. Okay?
Excuse me, John.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I'd just like to clarify that the statement that John made about HUD putting a hold on some of the HUD funding, that's because of the voluntary grant reduction that we had to have imposed for previous money that was spent. I just want, I'm not sure if everyone understood
I
that.
didn't do a very good job of that.
No, it's perfectly fine,
Director.
John. You're fine.
I apologize for that.
No, you're fine. It was up to me to explain that, so it's fine.
Okay. All right, so that's where we're going with the money for next year. The city typically budgets the full 15% of its annual allocation that is allowed under the regulatory cap. And as when we get to the next slide, or when we get to the action plan slides, we'll show you how we're proposing to allocate that money. Okay?
Just add a quick clarification.
Yes.
The $4 million, is that the combination of the prior year's resources plus the total?
That's what that is an expected amount available for the next 4 years. So that $4 million would be based on level funding of about $1 million a year.
Okay. Thank you.
And that is if there were a way to underline estimated, it should say estimated, expected. It never works out, ever. I've never seen that work out. But I've never seen HUD come back and get on anybody for overestimating or underestimating. What they're trying to do is make sure you got a feel for the fact that you're planning for 5 years, not just one.
Okay. Thank you.
John, I have a question about home, and this might be a little bit in the weeds.
Okay.
In the right-hand column, you list the CHODO, the Community Housing Development Organization.
Yes.
My understanding, can correct any of this, that as our CHODO, they get 15% of our annual home budget as a set-aside. Is that?
That's correct.
What are other options for us to use that money, and how do we activate those options?
you hope that the HUD will change the rule.
I'd explore that some. I think there.
The issue that you're talking about has been under discussion for as long as I've been connected with these HUD grants, which is almost 20 years now. It is, your question is just spot on. Unfortunately, the way the rule was originally written and the way the rule has been amended, that 15% set aside is still there, which is really problematic if you have either have no CHODO or an underperforming CHODO. Yeah, and unfortunately, right now there is not much of a workaround on that, which is part of the reason that Director Jones was having to explain to you why there's no new money, home money coming.
Can I just say that somewhere in here, the commissioners are making the note, John, that zero annual allocation is a huge reminder. And if you're saying that there's no other way for us to find a different CHODO, maybe find some working tenets of a better relationship for the CHODO, identify opportunities for improvement for the CHODO, and we have to live with it. We understand. We, again, appreciate your time this evening.
Okay. Well, we need to finish up because my voice is wearing out because it is 2 minutes after 11 here in Tennessee. So we get to the first year action plan. And so now what we are doing is implementing that strategic plan. These are the tactics for implementing. And again, we remind you over and over again, because this is very important. We're recommending provisional funding, conditional approvals based on once the allocation shows up, those adjustments that I outlined earlier. Okay? You'll see that this chart is pretty much the same as that chart that we saw about 3 or 4 slides ago. In fact, I think it's identical. All right? So these are what my colleagues and staff have identified as the annual goals and objectives for this first year action plan. Increase affordable housing, and that would be done through homeowner housing rehab, $300,000 from CDBG, and then $450,000 from home. Sonoma Estates Housing Project, provide housing for persons with special needs, particularly the elderly. That's an eligible expense for CDBG, allocating $354,605. Public services, and that's the 15%. So recommending public services for non-homeless special needs, total of $151,062. Exactly who those public nonprofits that would be the subrecipients for public services, that is part of the process that's going on right now. I believe there's a plan to issue an RFP within the next week or two and get those identified. Homeless Navigation Center. That was the what I was trying to remember not too long ago, and that would be funded with a little over $2 million, $2.1 million from home ARP money. That's not new money. That's money that's been around, and so those are funds that would go for supportive services. And then number 6 would be to support those programs through program admin. And so right now proposing $201,416 in CDBG money for admin. Now, if the allocation is higher, then that number would be increased, and then the housing rehab number for CDBG would be increased. If that allocation is lower, then we'd need to adjust the admin money and the public service money so that it stays below the 15% cap. All right? That, fortunately, is it, because my voice is just about gone. If you've got questions, contact Housing Community Development Department. And of course, now I think the next thing to do is conduct a public hearing on this.
Thank you so much, John. Please rest your voice, get some rest. And so we're going to turn our attention back to the commission. But again, we thank you for taking the time.
Well, I'll be available during this comment period if anybody has any questions that I need to answer.
I appreciate that so very much. Stay well there in Tennessee, and thanks again. Commissioners, I turn our attention back to item number 9C. I do want to re-emphasize for the record Commissioner Bundy's comments and concerns of this commission. I think Commissioner Patrick shares the concern regarding the Chodo receiving 15% uncontested for several years. Commissioner Patrick? Yes. It's a concern we get to share. Awesome.
Through the chair, could you open the public hearing, please?
The public hearing is now open.
Thank you.
I have question page 87. For the NSP line, it lists $921,000. May I ask where that figure comes from?
There's $921,000 left in the U.S. Treasury for the NSP grant.
That doesn't add up to when I look at the QPRs on the HUD data exchange, I get very different numbers. That's some of my initial concern, and that will be my ongoing concern.
Okay, I understand, and we can look into that, but
And city staff, I'll say I asked for an update on that in October, and Natalie Peterson balked on giving us that update, and we're still waiting for Ms. Gillian Hain to give us that update. It's expected
on Sonoma
in our April
Estates.
meeting. Yeah.
Through the chair, yes, and Ms. Hain had a meeting with the council a couple of weeks ago and informed us that she will be bringing the Sonoma State item to the commission in the month of April. She's on vacation through the rest of this month, and when she returns in April meeting, she'll attend. I will attend with her so she can provide an update on Sonoma Estates.
As a commissioner and a citizen, I will say that waiting 6 months for an update seems to obscure transparency.
Duly noted.
Through the chair. Through the chair. So I do want to make a clarification on Commissioner Bundy's question. So we have been working, we had worked with an NSP consultant who was provided by HUD. It was free technical assistance. So you're right, the quarterly performance reports, they have not been updated because we haven't had anyone in the department work on the NSP, and hence HUD gave us free technical assistance by giving us a consultant to work on cleaning out, giving us the numbers, providing us with a spreadsheet, and therefore that's where we got the $921,000 remaining balance for NSP.
So, Shari, I think and I appreciate your explanation, but I think the concern of the commission as the selected parties to review these numbers and maintain some sense of communication to the community as a collaborative. It's not the $921,000 that the commission has an issue with. The commission takes issue with the 2.3 plus million dollars that seems to be the gap in what's being reported on the HUD website versus the numbers we're seeing in our local reporting. So due to that dollar value is what's creating the concern on this commission. The commission is saying that if you were to say that we had no one working, which we know, and we've been short-staffed, which we know, and we really haven't had a director prior to Director Jones, which we understand, but the shortfall of $2.3 million to $900,000 is, the difference, 3.3 plus $3 million overall is the conversation, and we can only account for $921,000 is what's being stated, is the reason why the simple response to the commission is not enough.
Through the chair.
Sure.
I would like to just clarify, and Charlie, please jump in if you feel you need to. The entire amount, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we have allocated funds to Temple Arts, the Temple Arts development. We've also assisted low moderate income homeowners with housing rehab, and we used the funds to for Sonoma Estates for the purchasing of the acquisition of the land. So it's not that it's not that the funds, there's a gap in the funds. The funds were used, and this 921,000 is the balance of that overall dollar amount. I don't have it off the top of my head, but Chari can speak further on that. But I did want to, for the record, state that the funds were used in, I believe, four different categories, four different activities for NSP that qualify under NSP.
Yeah, so through the chair, what I did, I went and downloaded the QPRs from HUD, and with the most recent QPRs, I added up what the budgeted columns were, and then I added up what the drawn down columns were, and this is both for NSP1 and NSP2 combined.
I was going to say that. Okay.
So there was a remaining balance of $3.2 million from what I could see there.
Through the chair, again, we can check into that, Commissioner Bundy, but based on our conversations with HUD themselves and the technical assistance that they provided us, the $921,000, that balance is what we understand to be the balance that's left in the U.S. Treasury.
So I think where we could go this evening is to put a real stamp on this conversation and say, Director Jones, if you were to send us, after you confirm with all the parties that be, some version of a message to your commission so that we can put this issue to bed, that would be most advantageous. Understanding, again, we do not have staff that were working on the NSP at that time, but you have had technical assistance, and so therefore you can confirm that with all of the activities, the funds were drawn down and used. And then I would just caution you also to keep in mind that there's been no real communication from certain parties of the city to support what you're saying, quite the opposite. So as this commission evolves, there'll be more questions like this because we have the issue like we have in the home program. Prior to your start, prior to you being here, and we just all want to make sure we're advocating for the same change.
Okay.
And without making anyone more apoplectic this evening with numbers, can we agree to that part? Okay, fantastic. So I have agreement we'll get a communication from Director Jones, and we will proceed from there. It does not exclude the other parties from attending a housing. Sorry, I too are not well, but I'm recovering from the COVID, but from attending a housing community development commission meeting to have the conversations face to face to further lay to rest the concerns of this commission, Shari, which is why this is even more critical, my request. Okay. Back to our normal agenda. So with the public comment open, do we have anyone, are there any items on the consent calendar?
Through the chair, no current members of the public signed up to speak during the public hearing.
Fantastic. There is one, I think, still, there's a pending motion on the floor. It should be for item 9C, is that correct? I know Shari wanted us to move to the public comment, but I wanted to go back to that. 9C, it is to conduct a public hearing. No other action will be taken. For the record, commissioners, can I have a motion?
I will make the motion to conduct a public hearing for fiscal year 2025 to 30 consolidated plan and fiscal year 2025 to 26 annual action plan.
Through the chair, could you close the public hearing, please?
I want to close it after, I want to follow this agenda, and I want to close it after I do this recommendation, please. Great. Can I have someone second the motion? Roll
I
call,
second.
please.
Commissioners Bundy,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you. Public comment is now closed. Are there, since there's no written communications, is there a report from the committee's secretary?
Excuse me, Madam Chairman?
Yeah.
May I make one comment about that? The fact that you've closed your public hearing, that now opens a 30-day comment period on this plan. The public is invited to submit written comments to the city on the plan.
Thank you. Is there a report from the secretary?
Through the chair, just wanted to, I think Director Jones had mentioned that our Assistant City Manager, Gillian Hain, will provide an update on Sonoma Estates in our April commission meeting.
Thank you. Is there a report from the city attorney?
Through the chair, there's no report from the city attorney's
Okay.
office.
Is there a report from any of the presiding members, or does anyone of the commission have a community announcement they'd like to share?
Yes, there will be a food distribution. There was a change. There used to be on the first and third Saturday. In April, it will begin on the second and fourth Saturday between 10 and 12 o'clock at 500 Arkansas Street for a food distribution for the community.
Is that Faithful Fridays?
No, it's Saturday. Saturday, second and fourth Saturday beginning in April at 500 Arkansas Street, and that's the building is Old Path Miracle Cathedral Church.
Old Path.
Yes.
Miracle Cathedral Church.
Church of God in Christ.
Very familiar with it. Thank you so very much for that community update. Any others? Shari, do we have a report of subcommittees?
Through the chair,
None.
there's none.
Thank you. Commissioners, I want to thank you so much for your time. Community and friends, this is the conclusion of our agenda. Thank you all for pressing your way, although I hear some coughs. So John, feel better if you're still there. And for the rest of us, have a good night. Meeting adjourned. It's 9:21.